There were some hard feelings in Newfoundland back in 2005 when the Maple Leafs uprooted their top farm team, the St. John's Maple Leafs, and brought them to Toronto, rebranding them the Marlies. The Leafs had been such a good fit, and the all-team had been a success. Former NHLer Ryan Clough, back, a native Newfoundlander, will be the head coach of the Newfoundland Growlers in their inaugural ECHL season. Rick Madanick, Toronto Star, did leave a hole. Absolutely, says Glenn Stanford, then president the St. John's Maple Leafs. Was it hurtful at the time? Perhaps. But it was absolutely the right move because now everybody else is doing the same thing. The Leafs, it turns out, were ahead of the curve in terms of bringing their top feeder team closer to home. Montreal moved its top team to Laval. Ottawa moved its to Belleville. A whole West Coast division opened up for the NHL's California-based teams. St. John's was caught in the crossfire of a changing business climate. Bringing the All Leafs home meant reduced costs. It meant being able to sell a big city field to quality minor leaguers who could help the young prospects develop. The Marlies have become a perennial powerhouse and finally won the Calder Cup this year. Article continued. Below. Now the Leafs are back in St. John's, this time with an ECHL team, the Newfoundland Growlers, after a deal with the Orlando Solar Bears ended after 5 years. And they've been welcomed back with open arms. The people here, they understand hockey, they know their hockey and they appreciate hockey, says Stanford, now the governor and chief operating officer of the Growlers. Having this relationship back is a blessing for us. They're an Original Six team. The history they've had in our city for 15 years, it made for the perfect marriage. To be honest, the migration of all teams closer to their NHL parent cities has left some traditional minor league markets looking around. After the Leafs left Newfoundland, a province with a strong tradition in senior hockey, the QMJHL granted an expansion franchise, the St. John's Fog Devils, which eventually relocated to Montreal. Then along came the St. John's Icecaps, the top team of the Winnipeg Jets. The recently returned to Winnipeg, resuming life as the Manitoba Moose. The Canadians temporarily moved the Hamilton Bulldogs to St. John's, retaining the Icecaps name, before moving them again to Laval where they are now the Rocket. After a year empty, St. John's found the ECHL, the league below the All, to fill the Mile 1 center. Stanford said a working relationship with the Maple Leafs is critical to the success of the fledgling team. Article continued below. We've had a long-standing relationship from our St. John's Maple Leafs days, says Stanford. If you're going down the ECHL road and had to pick the number one team you want to be affiliated with, certainly Toronto is on the top of that list. The Leafs will be responsible for the coaching, medical and equipment staffs, and about half the roster. They recently announced the hiring of Newfoundland native and ex-NHLer Ryan Clough as the Growlers' first coach. About 10 players under contract to the Leafs or Marlies will play in St. John's. GM Kyle Dubas has said many times that he views the ECHL as developmental league, as AA is to baseball, not the goon league of its history. That's what really struck us, his passion for having that type of setup in St. John's, so that you're not just another city in the ECHL, Stanford says. They want people to be in St. John's, from players, coaching and a front office perspective that will move up the ranks. You want people to move on. It speaks well when other organizations are knocking on your door looking for people. It tells you you've done something correct. We were inspired by that kind of passion and that kind of commitment. That really swung us over to Toronto. The Growlers have the face of a Newfoundland dog, one that was the mascot of the Royal Newfoundland Regiment during the First World War, as their logo. A growler is also a small iceberg, as well as a jug of beer. They will compete in the North Division of the Eastern Conference of the 27-team league in their inaugural season. They'll also pay a travel subsidy to the visiting team, which tend to play 2-game series in Newfoundland. Kevin McGran is a sports reporter based in Toronto. Follow him on Twitter, @Kevin_McGran.